Quyntess helps companies to simplify the collaboration with their external business partners. So we all live in this world where we have our own system and we have our own processes, but all our business partners also have systems, also have processes. So you multiply your internal problems with the number of partners that you have, and we bring that one back to a one-to-one relationship of your relationship with the network. The tagline of our company is simplifying supply chain collaboration. So if you want to simplify things, you must have a certain complexity to start with. So typically we work for larger manufacturing companies, which then have multiple factories in multiple countries, hundreds of suppliers, sourcing thousands of items, typically have a diverse IT landscape with maybe multiple ERP systems, multiple warehouse management systems, that type of background, and help them to collaborate with their ecosystem. The basic change actually, let's say that we are looking at is like fluctuations at the order and at the order line level. And these typically come in three flavors: their dates, their quantities, and their prices. Those are the three main changes that we're dealing with actually, let's say, at the supply chain level. And now these things actually, they ripple through the supply chain, especially, let's say, the date changes. And currently, like the level of change that we typically observe in our customer base is that from the overall order lines that we are processing, on average, let's say 10% are changed during the execution life cycle of the order. They are actually, let's say, changed. 10% of these are changed by the buyer. So the buyer says, oh, I thought I needed these, let's say, on this date, but they actually need them on a different date. Suppliers at this point in time, they actively respond to 30% of the changes, and the other 70%, they just ignore them. So basically it means that if you require a different date from a supplier, but only 1/3 of those date changes is confirmed, you're flying blind on the other 70%. I would say in general, they are conscious of these issues. However, they've struggled with them for such a long time that they've sort of like been numbed by that. They take it almost as a law of nature that this cannot be changed. And they've struggled in the past, like with difficult EDI integrations with partners, with these difficulties to convince suppliers to onboard onto their supplier portal. So they feel like they have almost, let's say, given up on it. So they are conscious, they are aware, but it typically actually, let's say, takes them time to understand the value proposition of network and platform to realize that there is actually, let's say, a way to solve this old problem. In the beginning, it's already, let's say, good in this crawl phase. It's already good to actually, let's say, to have visibility about all these changes and about unexpected events that are happening or are not happening. And it has a lot of value to get these actually, let's say, to the surface, let's say, in the first place, because before you would only realize these things once they were too late. And then once you've got that to the surface and you know you can action these things actually rather than looking at them after the fact, you get into this walk phase and says, okay, now, well, what can I do to actually, let's say, prevent these things from happening? Why are they happening again and again? Should we engage a conversation with our suppliers? Or do we have an issue in our master data? You can actually, let's say, start to really improve the process and make it more robust and avoid actually these exceptions from happening rather than dealing with the exceptions. And in the run phase, you start to look at it as a competitive advantage. And we say, well, actually change will always be there, but how can we see change as a good thing rather than actually see change as a bad thing? And how can we use that to provide more value to our customers, to do things faster than the competition, to do things better than the competition, and outflank the competitors and basically become a company that's easy to do business with. people have talked about procure to pay for a long time, right? But pay generally it means getting paid. So I think the recent extension, let's say, that Tradeshift was able to do through the joint venture with HSBC is to actually not only say, well, we pay, but we actually pay. And there's a possibility to actually, let's say, do the payment execution also through the platform and become a payment service provider. I think that's also very compelling, because this will also, let's say, help the suppliers a lot going forward. And many of, I think, like the customers, they realize that this whole payment thing and having a ready-to-pay invoice, but then needing to instruct your bank and to get the money transferred at the end of the day is not so much value added, let's say, to their process, and there's better ways to do it. So I think that's a recent addition to the set of capabilities that further elevates the value for both the buyers and the sellers.